Ladies and gentlemen, all across the globe, welcome to another time of our global discussion on mental health and illness, but also the solutions. And we have some great people here today. We have some qualified people here today that's going to help us. And with that said, I want to turn this over to one of our wonderful connections in the Down Under, here, Mr. Deon Dean Adams. Deon and panel, welcome and good day to you all. Thank you so much.
Just like to welcome everybody that's listening live and the ones that are maybe listening to the replay. We do this week after week. We have been doing this since the later part of last year because we all came into the conclusion that mental health was not something that's supported properly in any country around the world. Because whether it's Kevin in the US, Miriam in Norway, we have another gentleman in England and Uganda, and myself here in Australia. Unfortunately, mental health is lacking in its support, no matter where you come from around the world. So week after week, we have special guests like our friend, Mr. Scott, and our other friends and guests, Hunter and Lisa, who's Hunter's mum. Since we've been doing this, Miriam and myself and others, we were given hints and tips and techniques for the people that are struggling with mental health and anxieties to cope better in life. They're very simple, very easy, but unfortunately, life isn't as simple as it seems. In the chaotic energies that we're living through in this last couple of years, through the different things that we've had to travel through, mental health has become a large issue. And unfortunately, in the countries around the world, mental health supposedly is supported, but that's a lot of bullshit. So each week we give simple tips and techniques to help people travel through this world that we live in. Because we are the writers, directors, and movie takers of our own life. But unfortunately, some people's scripts are rather fuzzy. And it's important that we do this every week because, like myself and Miriam and a few of us, have had a lot of mental health problems. But fortunately for myself, I've had a lot of support and learned different techniques and skills and abilities to life as it is. I met Mr. Scott 5 months ago or thereabouts. And since finding out that he teaches a thing called Qigong, which and in part of that is what's called an inner smile, which we do every morning after the swim and exercises that we do. And the benefit from that for myself is feeling very grounded, very peaceful. It's an inner peace. And unfortunately, if you're struggling from anxieties and depression, inner peace is something that you vastly don't even know what it is. Because when I observe people today, they're stuck in a device and they don't even know how to communicate. Unfortunately, people are parenting using a device and not parenting. They're devising, which makes them divisive. And they wonder why their children won't communicate. I firstly like to reintroduce Hunter and Lisa. Hunter, could you please relate to everyone what benefits you've gotten since we helped you out with some things earlier on?
Um, yeah, well, a lot less stress is the main thing, a lot less to worry about. Is the main things, before it was, I was having trouble just trying to get through basic things, most people my age do, like getting their license and all that I was having trouble with. But since you guys have helped us out, I've been starting doing driving lessons again. I've been a lot more proactive with my work, especially school work. So I've had like 3 assessments this week and I've nearly got them all done. I've been a lot more, able to manage my time a lot more. being able to manage things a lot. For mum, it's been a lot easier as well. We've had a few family things going on recently, personally, but away from that, we've still been able to keep a relatively balanced life with things that's been going on, and overall being able to just live life to the fullest as best we can.
And I'd just like to reach out and ask for anybody that's struggling with family things, anxieties, and struggles in general to come onto these meetings. Because if some way that we can help in any way possible, even just suggestions on how to cope. Because there's nothing worse than not having support from somewhere or another. Because there's so many so-called agencies out that offer help that when it comes down to it, it's hollow, which is unfortunate. So I'd just like now to hand it over to Mr. Scott. Welcome, Tony, and thank you so much for coming on again. And I'll leave the floor to you.
I'll just give the listeners and the people that are here just a short summary of who and what I am. I started studying law and graduated and became a barrister and a solicitor back in 1974. So I've been wandering around this mortal coil for a little while. And in my work as a barrister and a solicitor, I was mainly involved in litigation matters, commercial litigation essentially, which is fairly ferocious sort of endeavour in the midst of great conflict of one sort or another. And to balance that, I was doing practices of Tai Chi and Qigong, which are Chinese-based practices. Some people are aware of Tai Chi, seeing people doing slow motion activities in the park, which seems to be great, but it's actually a very sophisticated martial art. You understand it correctly. But in doing the practice of that, it formed a balance for me in a lifestyle which is pretty hectic in the professional life, and the stresses and the strains with that. But I also became aware that in that process, majority of the population are quite traumatized. Many of them just unaware that they are in that sort of condition and that they're constantly in a phase of fight and flight, and that therefore they're constantly under anxiety and the stress of that, and they can't turn it off. And if you're in that sort of situation, then that's going to be a recipe for future illness and disease. The stress itself just produces a lot of cortisol, which is a very negative chemical component within the body, which are called diseases in the different parts of the body. I was also aware that in teaching people Tai Chi, that a number of them would often find in those practices release of anger and frustration. And like a lot of people, they then well, what's changed? Oh, I'm being taught by this Tai Chi man, it must be him. And so they project their emotions onto the person who's probably trying to help them. This can happen quite often. So I dug deeper into the practices, the Taoist practices in dealing with this, and they have a practice called the inner smile. The inner smile is a way of going through the internal organs, and you're learning to feel and become aware of the inner activities within your body, and you learn to transform the negative energies that sometimes are associated with different organs, as they've identified in that process, and you can transform it to the positive aspects, because it's yin and yang. You get the positive bit and the negative bit. So if we have the time, I'd be happy to go through a very quick process of that, because it is a very powerful way to transform yourself. And as the great teacher Jesus said, we're brought here and we need to learn the story of love. Love the creator of all, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. The challenge with that for many people is they often don't even very much like themselves, let alone love themselves. So this is a way of actually transforming that. And it's such a simple thing. So in Chinese medicine, they've broken up the body into different areas. And so you have the water organs. And the water organs are made up of the bladder, the genitals, the kidneys, and it also interacts with your hearing, your ability to actually hear and your ability to understand. Then the next one in order of that, there's a creation order, and I'm going through the creation order, is the wood organs. The wood organs, and philosophically, the process is you've got water, you water the earth, and you get grasses and trees to grow. So the wood organs come next, which is the liver and the gallbladder. It also interacts with the sight and your ability to have insight of others and yourself. The next one are the fire organs. Now there are 4 of those, so that gets a bit complicated in the scheme of things, but the first one is what is known as triple warmer. That's the physical warmth, the mental warmth, and the spiritual warmth. So body, mind, and spirit. The next part of it is called the pericardium, which is the casing around the heart and the veins and arteries of the body. And the next part of that then is the blood itself that runs through all the arteries, and the heart muscle itself, which is often referred to as a pump, but I prefer to refer to it as a regulator. Yes, it has a pumping action in it, but it's actually regulating the speed at which the blood flows through and around your body. Then the last part of that is the small intestines. And the small intestines, from the Chinese point of view, is like a battery. It's where you actually store a lot of energy. And of course, it is the main organ that allows you to absorb the nutrients from the food you eat. Then you have the earth organs, stomach, the spleen, the pancreas, also the muscles, and also the lymph glands of the body. And people talk about the vagus nerve, so it interacts with that as well, because the vagus nerve links up with every organ in the body, but also all the lymph glands, which are in your groin, under your arms and breasts, in your neck. You've got the pineal and pituitary glands, and of course you've got the thyroid and the thymus, and these are all essential parts of the body. And in particular, the thyroid is the body's self-defense. That's where your body defends itself against incoming bacteria or viruses and diseases generally. Then after that, you have the metal organs, which are your lungs. And from the Chinese point of view, they regard the skin of your whole body as part of your lungs. So it's the lungs, the skin of the body, and the large intestines. So they're all regarded in those fashions. So the way this works is you just work through and breathe through. I'll just take you through very quickly a round of the inner smile. So it starts off with putting your hands, if you're in public place, it probably looks a bit odd, but anyway, your hands down where your genitals are, because that's where your bladder is, and try and feel the warmth coming from your hands. So to do this, just rub your hands together to warm them up, okay? And then, having rubbed them up, place them on the lower belly, where your genitals are, and smile into the bladder and to the genitals, and feel the warmth that comes from your hands into that area. Smile within yourself into that. So just take 3 deep breaths as you're breathing in, and smile as you're breathing out. As you breathe in, smile, loving, appreciating, and accepting. Loving, appreciating, and accepting. Now place your hands on your lower back, which is where your kidneys are. It's got a bit of noisy traffic outside. And so feeling the lower back where your kidneys are, and again, smiling into that. Breathing in, smile, loving, liking, and appreciating your kidneys. This is transforming fear, anxiety, terror, coldness, and depression to gentleness, receptiveness, willpower, creativity. And then we have the wood organs. So on the right-hand side, just underneath your ribs, on the right-hand side, put both hands there and smile into the liver, which just lies in this area here. So feel the warmth of your hands going into the liver, smiling into it. Smiling, love, peace, appreciation, and acceptance, and transforming frustration, jealousy, resentment, anger, and rage to kindness, forgiveness, organization, and generosity. Okay, so now we come to the gallbladder, which is just up from the liver, and smiling into that. Feel the warmth, feel the energy and heat traveling into the gallbladder. Loving, appreciating, and accepting. And now go to triple warmer. So triple warmer starts just underneath your navel. Put one hand underneath your navel. Take a deep breath in there. And then bring one hand up to the heart. So you have one hand on the lower belly, one at your heart. Breathe there, feel the warmth, smiling into it, appreciating it. And then the third eye. Just put your hand there to awaken it. Now come back to hold the pericardium. So hands are just crossed over at your heart level. Smiling into the pericardium, the veins and the arteries. So smiling, healing, appreciating, loving, transforming arrogance, ignorance, and cruelty to warmth, compassion, exploring, and understanding. Now change your hand. So you've got one hand resting on the thumb of the bottom hand. And again, place that over your heart. That's it. That'll do. And feel the warmth of your hands into the heart. So this is the blood and the heart. And here we're transforming desires, greed, impatience, and selfishness to love, peace, inspiration, and joy. Just smiling and loving and appreciating the blood and the heart that's traveling and throughout your body is essential for your good health. Now bring your hands down to either side of your navel. Feel the warmth into the small intestines. And again, smiling, appreciating, and loving the small intestines. It's the chemical factory and power battery. It's just like a battery energy center. Brings all the energy together. smiling into that, loving and appreciating it. Now bring your hands a little bit up, but to the left of center, smiling into the stomach. This is where all the food starts. How many people have indigestion and those sort of problems? Smiling into your stomach. Loving and appreciating it. This is the essential start of good health, is having an effective stomach that can properly digest all the food you need. Loving, appreciation, and enjoying. And now, as if you're hugging yourself on the left side, which is the spleen. So you have the spleen just underneath your ribs, smiling into that. So a little bit to the left, on the left side of the body, and transforming worry, pessimism, obsession, and selfish ambition to sensitivity, harmony, perseverance, and courage. Smiling, loving, and appreciating. And now we start with the metal organs, which is the lungs. So start on the lower ribs, feel the warmth from your hands into your lungs, smiling into it and transforming guilt, grief, resentment, deception, and sorrow to appreciation, integrity, unity, and strength. Smiling, appreciating, and loving. And now the large intestines. On the left side is the descending colon. So put both hands on the left side of your belly, smiling into it. Take one deep breath there, then bring your hands to the transverse colon, which is just underneath your diaphragm. So in that area there, smile into that. And then on the right side is the ascending colon, smiling into that. So that is one round.
Yeah. Yeah.
You normally do 3 rounds of that. And you'll find if you do 3 rounds of that, you'll start releasing the tensions of the body, the tensions in the mind and the spirit. And you start allowing the body to actually come into what is called rest and repair. When you're in rest and repair, then the whole body is in a state where whatever issues you have health-wise can start to repair it. In that state, if you come to stillness, there's a practice called the Great Path of One Truth, where you bring your hands together in a particular way. I'll go into that another time. There are a number of different parts to this, but it brings you to a point where you're barely breathing. All you're aware of is a slight movement of your belly, which is called fetus breathing, where your belly expands and then contracts. You're hardly breathing at all, very light breathing. And in that state, the grey matter of your brain actually starts repairing. In that state, the telomeres on the end of your DNA start repairing. This has actually been determined and discovered through various scientific research, studying those people who do these sorts of practices, that the outcome of all of this is the way to actually help and repair and restore the health of your body, to release the stresses and the tensions, and transform the negative energies that we carry around with ourselves, the worries, the concerns, the anxieties, the fear, the anger, the frustrations that come along with life in the normal course. And of course, pride and ego gets in the way with a lot of that. And of course, sex is sort of the great destroyer of everybody, really, men and women, when it's done inappropriately. but it can be a hugely transforming experience if it's done with caring. I have a small poem on that, which is, they call it making love, this burning desire for lust and pleasure, which will surely lead to despair, unless...
Tony, Lisa's asked a question. How long have you been doing this practice?
How long have I been doing this practice? Well, I started practicing Chinese martial arts back in 1968. I started doing Tai Chi in 1974 and gradually learning since that time the various Qigong practices and health practices. I actually studied acupuncture at one stage, but other things came. I was about 1 month from completion, but other things took over my life at that stage, and I didn't finally complete it. But I've just kept on with the practices because that was my personal journey, not necessarily to be my profession, to earn money out of that sort of activity. I'm still learning, if I can say that. I think you stop learning when you're no longer part of this mortal coil, but you just keep on learning more and more. But the more I do learn, the more I know that one of the insights I had, which was the illusion is the separation. We're all connected together in some way or fashion. And that's why you not only is it important to love yourself and love others, but that is the transformation process itself, to learn to love. Too much emphasis today is put on people just following their bodily desires. Well, that's going to lead to disaster if you do that without some control. The general problem for men is sexual desire. The biggest problem for women is generally becoming over emotional about things, and so they lose their balance in that and lose what can I say, a balanced and middle path approach to things, and it gets one way or the other way too much. So these are the challenges for people, and self-discipline is key to all of that. So the second part is then everybody today likes to talk about mindfulness. Now, I'm not saying mindfulness is inappropriate, but it seems to me it gives too much strength and power to the mind itself, when the mind itself is often the problem. And so one of the practices is learning how to just observe yourself. You sit back and observe yourself. If you can just, and so a lot of practices that people go to in doing Qigong and meditation is you do various breathing practices. This is often called meditation. That's not meditation. They're very good practices, and it's key to learn and do and practice breath work, to control your breath. And learning to control your breath is the way you learn self-control. If you can control your breathing and keep that in harmony and balance, then you will also control and learn to control your mind. But the best way to control your mind is to be able to observe yourself. So you observe a thought coming along. Thought's fine, but if you just observe it like it's a cloud passing, that's what you want to do. If you engage with it, then it's like put a beacon in your head, like an airport, and the thought will come down to land. And the answer to that is when the plane lands, you'll find there's going to be more ideations of one sort or another that come from all the passengers that then disembark from that aeroplane than you'd want in a lifetime. If you can just watch it and pass it as a passing cloud, then your mind comes to the point where it stops sending these thoughts. And thoughts, a bit like concept of the 80-20 rule, sometimes in banking called the rule of 78, otherwise known as the Pareto distribution, is 80% of thoughts are probably rubbish. 20% maybe have some possibilities, and out of that, you've then got to decipher and work out what is the one that's going to work for you. Why? Because your mind is actually designed to satisfy the drives and desires you have, whatever they may be. And everybody's are going to be different. And mind is there to try and find ways to satisfy your desires. So this is where stress arises if you have too many thoughts occurring, because your body is then preparing to activate what it is saying should happen for you to satisfy that particular desire or thought. So if you have 10 thoughts all of a sudden, now your body's going in 10 different ways. It's sort of all the gears in the body are now sort of crunching and crashing together, because you've got opposite things happening and you're running, oh no, I'm going here, there and everywhere. So you have your body, you have your mind, and you have your spirit. And the spirit is the last one to get a say in all of this. But that's what you need to do, is to be able to sit back, observe the emotion, observe the thought. Where did that come from? Where did that belief come from? Where did the expectation come from? And you'll realize in that process, in just observing yourself, that the thought that you've observed clearly can't be you. So otherwise, how did you observe it? The emotion you've got can't be you, because you're observing emotion that's separate from yourself, separate from you, the observer. And the observer is the position of the spirit. I remember I was doing a bit of running at one stage. Silly thing to do, but it can be quite liberating. And I was running through the Botanic Gardens in Sydney. I had some friends, other barristers, and we didn't have any cases on. We'd get out together and go for a half-hour run around the Botanic Gardens, which is just wonderful, beautiful environment in Sydney, next to the harbour, great place to be. And I was just running along, and all of a sudden I found myself, it was like I was a sitting Buddha sitting on top of my head, and I was just observing myself run. And in that process, I said, oh, we'll run down these stairs and run around this garden bed, and we'll run up those stairs. And it became effortless, like the body was just functioning the way it should, without any effort, without any stress, without any difficulty. Sometimes this is called the runner's high, but this is also the way Tibetan lamas learn to run in, because if they travel from a monastery, from one monastery to another in Tibet, the distance is often about 100 and 150 miles. So you're not going to do that in a short time, but you must learn to be able to run that sort of distance, which is where that sort of running comes in. But you've also got to learn to ensure you can survive in a blizzard in, say, 40 degrees below. And so they talk about breathing practices called tumo breathing, where you've got to spend a night drying at least 3 sheets. So they wet the sheets, and your body heat has to, and you're sitting outside. You're not sitting in the warm of inside. You're sitting outside, 40 degrees below, and you've got to use your body heat to actually dry these sheets. And they're able to do this, right? But they make that a condition, because otherwise, if you get caught out in the Tibetan blizzard, and the changes can happen very quickly there, you're likely to die if you can't do that sort of thing. So these sort of practices, which are part of all of that tradition and Qigong tradition, have passed the test of did they actually do work?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important. And that's the touchstone that I've followed, and why I liked about Tao's practices that I'm showing here is if it works, use it. If it doesn't work, as Deon will vouch, there's some more complexity in that simple inner smile that I've given, but because we can add to it, there are colors that apply as well as the feelings that you get through that. And you can use certain chanting which helps it. But that's a good starting point and it's essentially the central practice of all Taoist practices to bring the body into balance and harmony. And in that process, to bring the mind into balance and harmony, because the mind is out of balance if parts of your body are out of balance. If your body is unwell, if you're suffering a disease, then your mind is clearly not going to be in harmony and in balance. So you need to be able to deal with both aspects. Physically, it's the emotions and it's the energy. And as you do Qigong practices, which are designed to increase the energy traveling around your body, you find you get yourself into a point where you're feeling quite euphoric. Wouldn't you agree, Deon?
Yeah, you feel like you're freaking stoned. I've said this to Tony a lot in the last few weeks. I've been dealing with some issues which otherwise would have been different. But through the processes that we do from the swim at between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, nearly every morning, apart from Sundays when we go to church, that the exercises, the breathing and the movements, because some of you know that most of my spine's fused together and some of you don't. And because I've had a stroke, some part of my body is not behaving itself, but it's gradually getting a little bit better each time.
Yeah.
But I've had a few issues with a few things recently. But through the practices, by the time we've got halfway through it, any sort of negative emotions have just washed away. And by the time we get to what we've called the inner smile, where you're loving all your organs and converting the negative emotions into loving, positive ones. By the time we get to that point, you can hardly tell I'm breathing because I'm so peaceful. And we do other things. It's called a foot pump, which you're activating the lymph nodes in your feet, under your armpits, in your hands, all across your body. And the whole process is it's become an invaluable part of my life, and I thank Tony for that.
Yeah,
because it's all his years of dedicating himself to learning these processes, which he's gifted me each morning, and now he gets into trouble if he doesn't turn up. No, I was just been funny. But I look forward to it every morning. I'm awake at 4:30, showered and ready to go every morning.
So in the morning, we actually do a practice which grounds us. So gather the energy of the earth and also offer the earth to the sun and gather the energy of the sun. This acts as a very powerful grounding mechanism. Another concept in Tai Chi is that the human being is uh, the conduit between heaven and earth, and the energy traveling from the earth to the sun and the sun to the earth, or earth to the heavens and heavens to the heaven down to earth. And not many people are aware, but originally in the Taoist tradition, the creator of all was a being called Shang-Ti. And that was the original creator of all, very similar to what is understood by the Judaic and the Christian system. So it has very little difference. Indeed, I've read a few books who talk about the language of Chinese, which is a pictographic language, which says its origins are based in Genesis, the words of Genesis, and that structure. And it's a very compelling argument that the Chinese were actually the lost tribe of the Judaic people, and that's where their language came from. Very interesting story. But anyway, the position there was Shang-Ti and the way of heaven. So Taoism is called Tao, the way, and it's the way of heaven with the one uniting God, which governs us all. So it actually has a lot of interactions or comparisons with many of the traditions of Christianity, particularly the Eastern Orthodox Church. And there's a book called Christ the Eternal Tao, where they've taken the Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu, and added to it words of Jesus as a completion to the various chapters that originally formed the Tao Te Ching. So it's a very powerful piece of writing, available on from Amazon, I believe. Is it not, Deon?
Yeah, no, it is. No, it's it's a piece of work that Tony, we originally read sections of it to me since, and then I bought my own version of it, and I've just ordered this book, Our Thoughts Determine Our Lives, by it's the life and teachings of Elder Thaddeus Vigna. That's
Vidavakanya.
Yeah, that one.
The monastery. Very powerful. He became so well known that people would come to him from many miles around just to get his wisdom and insight on their particular personal situation. And he himself says his words were basically inspired by the Holy Spirit.
But what I find interesting, I don't read a book like a normal person because I'm not normal, but that's beside the point. I'm guided to go to sections in the book, and the first section that I was guided to come into that book was about humility. And then I was guided again when I was working with someone else today. I did some healing on someone today. Yeah. And I was guided to another section in the book. It was all about being joyful and buying inner peace and happiness. Mm-hmm. And again, I was guided again into a particular page which talked about loving thy neighbour and loving one's enemy. And it comes back to the one truth, which is love. If you're emitting love, that's all you're going to draw towards yourself. But if you're full of anger and bitterness, all you're going to draw towards yourself is angry and bitter people. And the more you focus on that inner self-love and filling the void that's there that a lot of us have had in life with self-love and the love of God or whatever you believe in. In my own life, I've not been religious, but I've always been very spiritual. And since finding the church and now becoming baptized on Saturday into the Coptic Christian church, the more and more I do the exercises with Tony
Mm-hmm.
And the swim I do every morning, I'm becoming more and more peaceful every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps with day-to-day things that come up, whether it's family, circumstances, and events.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, thoughts, when emotionalized, become magnetized, and then that's what you're attracting.
Mm-hmm. Amen. You know,
And once
Deon,
you,
yeah, I'm sorry, Deon, real quickly, I just wanted to ask the question, and mainly for the audience as well, to our distinguished panel. Could you give us a definition of humility, or where to look it up, or what books to read on that subject? The word
well, this
humility.
is actually this book that would I was given it recently from Tony to read,
Mm-hmm. So I like
but it's called Our Thoughts Determine Our Lives. It's
Mm,
the life and teachings of Elder Thaddeus of it's VITOVVNICA. I
mm-hmm.
bought it on a version of it on
Yeah.
on um, Amazon,
Okay. Yeah.
and just the simple things like humility
Yeah.
and things like that is
Yeah.
people have forgotten what it is to be humble.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, just the definition of, what does that mean? They've heard hey, we've heard the name being humble, but we didn't really know how to process it or really how to express that.
Well,
We have,
I'll just read you one of the paragraphs out
yeah.
of the book. I have it marked because it was
Yeah.
so significant. It says, I was very keen to learn that what the life of those who serve God wholeheartedly was like. So when I was younger, I liked to leaf through the works of the Holy Fathers, and I saw their inner state.
Mm,
They themselves described this.
yeah.
You see, we only live life on the outside.
Right.
And when we see the stream of life passing by, however, the inner life of every individual is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
I had to desire to learn about this inner life of those who had lived in a perfect life here on earth and who have glorified by God both here and in eternity. It was then that I realized, as the Holy Fathers themselves explained, that the perfection of Christian life consists of extreme humility.
Mm,
I think humility in this context is also to respect another person and allow them to be able to tell their story and not interrupt their story, to let them tell the story fully,
mm,
and to, if you're able to, endeavor to put yourself in their shoes so you can understand the concept of there, but for the grace of God go I. And so it's, I think it's really humbling to understand that I could be that villain that's been called off to the gallows for hanging, uh, as I may be the rich man sitting in the big house on the hill. It's the vicissitudes of life and the different ways we approach things. Um, Today, people are filled with with so much apparent knowledge and experience, they can hardly wait to fill you with their idea of what's good things for them or not, without necessarily listening or fully understanding that person's situation. And in the context of a father in that concept, or a priest in that concept, is not even taking the time
yeah.
to meditate on the situation to perceive what might be the appropriate um, advice or suggestions that you could give a person in their situation if you've been asked to give that sort of advice. But at
Mm,
least learn to hear them out before you go trampling across their
Yeah,
garden.
I call that active listening,
Yeah, that's right.
because if
Yeah,
you're actively listening to someone,
mhm.
Jordan
And then
Peterson
what?
encapsulates this very, very well. By active listening is then being able to summarize but respond back to a person with your best idea of what they've actually told you. And the benefit of that is, of course, it then assures the person that you have been listening and you're not just sitting there as a blank stone. And then that generates an interaction. And more importantly, having done that, the person can start to trust you with what they're really burdened. Because one of the real tricks in counselling, and I have done a bit of counselling at different times, is usually in any counselling session, the most important thing given by a person who's come for counselling is said just before they leave. It's often their last words before they walk out. And you really got to listen for that, because that will often be the key and the trigger that you'll want to understand, acknowledge, and say, well, let's deal with that next time we're here. Because often there are time limits in that sort of framework of activity, but it's surprising how many times people who have come for counselling, they will give you the pearl or the heart of their real issue just before they leave. But that only happens if you've actually spent the time with active listening to build up their trust in you. If they can't trust you, they're not going to say anything.
Miriam, would you like to follow on from that, please?
Yeah, I love it. I think, like you said, everything starts with yourself. To love yourself, find the love within yourself, to be able to love them around us as well, to be humble, to take care of them around us, and how important it is to take care of yourself, to love all parts of yourself. We are all connected, and it's so important to see that we are in this earth at the same time for a reason. How can we support each other? How can we love ourselves even more so we can help them around us in a good way? So thank you so much for your knowledge and for to be here today. Learn from all that you have, all your wisdom you have within yourself. So then we'll listen to you today.
And take the time to actively listen to people you work with, to your loved ones, your intimate partners, your siblings. Because in amongst those words is quite often what's really going on. And even the emotions they're emitting at the time. If you're really in tune and actively listening, because you hear what's not said in amongst the words with the emotion and the intonation in the voice. Because it's something that can be learned, felt, understood. And the work that Miriam and I do teaches us, we learn to tune into the person. When you're constantly entangled with them, you understand what's not said. Then in the end, you get to the gestalt or the root cause of what's really going on, is what Tony was alluding to before. But once you build rapport with a person, then they will open up, because they know that they're in a safe container to really tell you what's really going on. Because quite often they'll skirt around the subject until the different things have triggered to really, then they become comfortable, because your unconscious mind will only let it do what it's survived. And because the unconscious mind is trainable and it survives something more than 3 times, it wants more of it. But unfortunately, if it survived brutality, fear, and numerous other things like abuse, it wants more of it. That's unfortunately where some people end up marrying the same abusive partners again, whether they be alcoholics or any of those sort of things that we find in the world today. But those instructions can be changed. Because fortunately for Miriam and I, we've both learned the skills and abilities to help people through that journey. And through those teachings and other things that we both learned in this period, the changes that we both see in people that have lived a life of abuse, that no longer have to live a life through that anymore, because you can shift them out of it. So you don't have to live that life of constant fear for the rest of your life, because there is skills and tools out there to be able to help you release those, like Tony was talking about earlier, through the breathing, the movement, that special inner smile where you're blessing your organs, because you become extremely peaceful. And it helps you deal with all sorts of people in life today. And I thank Tony once again for his presence. And his wisdoms and all the years of the knowledge and learning that he's relaying to myself and another friend of ours each morning. I think we'll end that here tonight. I will ask Lisa and Hunter, come as much as you can, please, and invite as many people as you can. Anybody you know that's suffering or struggling like you guys were when we first, like when I met you a couple of years ago. I was so impressed by you, Hunter, and the way that you helped your mum. No, I was very impressed. That's why I did what I did for you guys. And it was lovely to hear that you're getting a driver's license eventually, and it's helping you both move forward. Is there anything like you would like to say, Hunter or Lisa, in parting?
I guess the biggest takeaway for me is being humble. Just something, to be more humble to people around me, be more open-minded to what they have to say. Yeah. So that's my main takeaway, at least from today.
And just be compassionate and forgiving. Sometimes it isn't easy. But just step back and observe what's there. Firstly, observing yourself and why you may have reacted to something. But this is why it's so important that we do this every week, because this gets streamed live into Facebook. And I'd just like to reiterate again, please share this out on all your social media platforms.
Hi.
Everywhere you can.
We are also able to attend a conference thanks to you too.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Because Lisa's non-verbal, she uses her text-to-speech to interact, which is really great. Lisa's a very intelligent woman.
Yes, she is. Yes, very beautiful.
And it was with Hunter's support, and both he and Lisa have a better life than they would have otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Hunter, for your presence tonight. Thanks once again, Tony, and we'd love to have you again at some point.
Yeah, always welcome. That's great.
I think we'll just end that off here, please, Kevin.
Okay.
And I'll just sort of ensure that if you haven't heard it this week, please come if you can.
Yeah.
Invite as many people as you can. If you know someone that's suffering from any sort of depression or anxieties or just struggling in life,
right,
here's the place that we can teach you basic skills and how to travel through that journey.
Amen. I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen all around the world, thank you so much for those listening live right now. I want to thank our panel today, everybody here with us today. I did want to leave you guys out there that want to get in touch with Deon and also to Miriam professionally. I want to make sure you have their websites, okay, guys? So we're talking now to Deon Dean Adams, ladies and gentlemen, conscioushealingarts.net. This is his website, so you can contact him for more professional and more information that you may need, or if you need to have a consultation or just have a time to ask specific questions for your needs, conscioushealingarts.net for Mr. Deon Dean Adams. And for Miriam up in Norway, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to her wonderful Miss Miriam Wallin. She's in Norway. You can go to anchoroffreedom.com, of Freedom. That's anchoroffreedom.com to learn more about Miriam's wonderful background and professionalism. And you can contact her through her website as well. Also, too, we want to recognize Mr. Patrick of Uganda. He is a clinical specialist helping people every day. He's an amazing individual, helping people every day. He's in Uganda. Patrick is on Facebook. And if you want to get in touch with him, let me know. I'll be glad to send you his information as well in that area. And Mr. Tiny, well, thank you so much. I don't know if you have a contact. You feel free to share that if you have a website or anything. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can get in touch with me through Deon.
Okay, great. That's a great way to handle it. Wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Hey, Kevin Vaughan here in the States. If you have any right now, if you do have an emergency, I know at least in the United States, we encourage you, if you do have an emergency in these areas, we recommend you call 911 for quick emergencies and 988 for any mental health issues that you have maybe in your family or you may recognize as well. Once again, in the United States, 988. You can dial that number now if you need to, or 911 for specific emergencies. And we just thank you so much for your time. And as Deon mentioned earlier, please share this out, ladies and gentlemen, on all your platforms, because you never know who will be helped today by the words of Mr. Tiny and Patrick, and also to Deon, and also to Lisa and Hunter and Miriam. You just never know. One word may trigger their wonderful self today and to get more excited about their wonderful life because they matter as well. Well, thank you so much. We're here on Thursdays. Ladies and gentlemen, be looking out on the network for the schedule. But normally, just to give you a reference, we're here at 5 a.m. in the States, Eastern Standard Time, 5 a.m., and of course around the globe at the different time zones as well. But we look forward to having you back again. Deon and everybody, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Kevin.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
All right. God bless everybody. We'll let you guys go ahead and close out the way you like there, and then I'll close out as well. Thank you so much, guys. God bless. Have a great day, everybody.
Enjoy.
Amen. Keep smiling, everybody. Keep smiling. It's a great day.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Yeah, take care now. Patrick, have a wonderful day, my friend. God bless you. All right, my friend. Take care. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.